Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for the Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was created by Blake, who is a professional photographer from Connecticut. Blake shot this image with a Nikon D700, 34mm lens, effectively ISO 1000, f6.3, and 1/250th of a second. Blake was also using a fill light here. I want to talk more about that in a minute. Paraphrasing Blake's backstory and questions, says that this image was part of a series of shots that he made for his portrait subjects to be a gift to their father for Father's Day. Said he had great models and they look fantastic here. He said one of the big challenges of this shoot was a narrow window of time when everybody could be together, and it was in a very bright part of the day. So we're going to talk more about that when we talk about the fill light. The questions, Blake says he was a little bit surprised on his 28-70 zoom that this shot, when he saw the metadata, was at 34mm. He typically likes to be zoomed out a little bit more. Do I see any perspective issues as a result of this focal length? And he also has a question about the background. What do I think about this bright area in the background? Let me talk first about what I like about this image. I love the expressions. These are genuine smiles. You can fake the smile in the mouth, but not in the eyes. These muscles that contract in the eyes in genuine smiles. You can't fake that. So very powerful in terms of getting all three portrait subjects. Be very connected with the camera, which means in the print they'll be connected with their father, now with us as the viewers, and then the smiles. To do this with one portrait subject, depending on how comfortable they are with being photographed, can be difficult, and to do it with three, really amazing. To me, one of the hardest jobs in photography is group portraits. Fantastic expression. I want to mention something else here. The outside portrait subjects have something that's really helping to be congruent with the feeling of these smiles, and that is the body language of these head tilts. We naturally do that when we're relaxed, and I cannot overemphasize how much that's adding to the connected, warm feeling. We don't have it in the middle, but the fact that we have it on the outside is creating this overall feeling of very, very relaxed and very connected and very happy. And it's so important that I wanted to point it out, and I also want to just mention a couple of things that could help you get there if you're not getting that. If you're shooting one portrait subject, let's just say that we're just photographing this portrait subject, and if we're not getting there naturally, then you could just tilt your camera a little bit and imply that diagonal, and that would help. Clearly, if you're formal posing, then you can know how important this is, and you can work that into the pose, the tilt of the head. The other thing that you can do, that if you don't want to directly ask for this, and it's going to get the tilt and also possibly help your portrait subject to be more relaxed, is find out if your portrait subject or subject's left-handed or right-handed, then just ask them to relax most of their weight onto their dominant foot, and then by doing that, this tilt naturally happens, because that's what we're doing subconsciously. We're interacting with other people, and we're open, and we are relaxed. In addition to the great expression and the body language, I'm enjoying the way Blake worked his fill light in here. Nikon speed light on a stand, camera left, modified by an umbrella. You can see how bright the light is back here in the background, and Blake has pulled a classic here that works really well if you're just getting into shooting people and you have to work in the bright part of the day. Getting the sun behind them is going to help you in a lot of different ways. People can't relax, the average person can't relax their face looking into the bright light or having the bright light hitting their face. Sun behind, if it's coming through directly, can create some highlights on shoulders and tops of heads that can create specularity and a bright spot that can help the portrait subject to separate from the background. Downside of doing that could be that your portrait subject is looking into a very heavy shadow, so you don't get much light into the eyes or the face, hence the fill light. If we overfill, then it can look unnatural, and the lighting becomes the subject of your picture. I think Blake's done a wonderful job of getting a nice quantity and quality of light into the faces and into the eyes without making this look like it's been heavily filled by flash. Also nice with the depth of field here. The grouping of the portrait subject's pretty sharp everywhere. That falls off a little bit, helps to simplify the background. Let's look at the questions. Perspective is driven by how far or how close we are to our subject or subjects. Things that are closer to the lens will appear bigger than everything else. So if we put on a wide lens, that will allow us to get really close to some things and still see a lot of that thing and either things behind it. The problem with that is that by putting on the wide lens and moving in real close, if there's one thing, let's say like this elbow, that now becomes relative to the faces a lot closer, it will loom very large and the faces can seem small. And so when we're photographing people in particular, where if we really distort the perspective in terms of the way all the different parts of a body or features of the face relate to each other, it can be a big distraction. The fact that Blake is shooting pretty loose here means that even though he's shooting semi-wide, he's backed up a pretty long way. All of these different parts of the body and the face are relatively the same distance from the lens, so I'm not seeing much perspective distortion here. It would be interesting to back up even more and zoom to 70 and just see how that's different. One of the things that we know that that would do is create a little bit more of a feeling of shallow depth of field, might simplify the background even more. When it comes to this background, the main thing that I think about this area right here has to do with overall image design. The main subject, the grouping of the people here, very symmetrical, and then the background is very asymmetrical. This part is really simple and symmetrical, but then up here, almost opposite energies. You have the line and the tree and sort of the level of contrast that you have there. Over here you've got a circle, high contrast. Here earth tones, not much color. Here one of the highest value colors on the color wheel, yellow green. And so that starts to draw my eye back there because the symmetry is so different, the way balance is being managed. And I might push towards a variation where in post I either took the circle and implied that over here, changed it up, that could be really difficult because of all these details, or take the tree and flip it over. Another thing that I might do here, unless that background is really important, that's the backyard and there's some reason to want to show that space, to show that they're at home, I might come in a little bit tighter, just cropping away some of this information in the background. I do think if you took the tree and duplicated it, you'd start to push towards something that's quite a bit more formal, but the posing here and the symmetry of that is pretty formal. So I want to show you a variation that I might do here that overall, all the way, it's more formal, and then I would love to hear your feedback about that. Could crop in a little bit, and then I just want to go to this file where I did duplicate the tree. I've done the crop already, and I converted to black and white. The black and white is going to be more formal than right now the vibrancy of all these different colors. So here's the before, and here is the after. And I've pushed, pretty hard, almost to the point of making the background look like a backdrop, but I've done that on purpose to just go from something that is obviously pretty loose and looks like it is in the backyard to something that looks more like studio. And that might be a variation depending on what the client wanted I would go for. One last thing that I'll say when I get to this point, something that I saw in the beginning but it's a lot easier to see now. If this was going to be my pose, I would ask this portrait subject to bring her arm around and put her hand on her hip so that I would get a suggestion of the other arm doing the same thing and overall sort of complete the circle, just thinking about the idea again of symmetry. We'd love to hear your feedback about the critique today. I want to say a huge thank you to Blake. He's really given us a fantastic chance to talk about a lot of things that could be powerful takeaways if you would like to improve your photography of people. Fantastic job of working the group here to get these amazing expressions that are synchronized, and also a fantastic job of using a fill light here, which can be a very difficult thing to do in portrait photography. I want to say a big thank you to Blake, big thank you to you. Hope to see you again real soon on the Mindful Eye.